Okay, so let us start. Uh, Vinod uncle, can you tell us, maybe start off by telling us a little bit about your childhood, the type of home you grew up in?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Um, we come from a Jain background, and Jains are not Hindus. Many people mistake me for being a Hindu, but I'm coming from a Jain background. I mention this because Jainism is a atheistic religion, and and because Jains are very strong on non-violence, vegetarianism, and because they cannot do farming, because they because they kill organisms. Most giant people are business people. So my father was a businessman in Coimbatore, cotton, and I studied in a school in Coimbatore, and then I went to do what was called the pre-university in those days. That replaced the intermediate. There was intermediate before that, before you join a degree course. But now this was pre-university 1 year, and then you do a degree course for 3 years, or you do medicine for another 5.5 years. So this is a pre-university course. I went to Loyola College in Chennai, which is a Jesuit college. But because of uh, my background, the fact that Mahatma Gandhi stayed in a house in Cochin. We had a house opposite the town hall. Uh, and in his Padyatra, he stayed in 1934. My father was just a young boy, but my grandfather was there. He stayed with us. And so we're very proud, and we always keep harping on this fact. So it was natural for me to read his books. And one thing that stood out, I read his books in mostly in English, but he also wrote in Gujarati. One thing that he says is that when I read the Sermon on the Mount, it went straight to my heart. So this information I had about him. So when I went to Loyola College, uh, I used to play tennis, rather badly. But there was a Jesuit priest who used to also play, and he became very friendly. He was teaching literature, Shakespeare, and all that. So one day I asked him, Father, what is this Sermon on the Mount? And then he was quite surprised. And then he sent me a New Testament to my room. I was in the hostel. So when I read that portion, Matthew chapter 5 and 6, um, I felt um, almost electrified. Most people think that they get converted because of logic. But I had no background either in Jainism or in Jainism or in Christianity. But when I read the Sermon on the Mount, I had that strong feeling that this was God. And so that stayed at the back of my mind. I was not planning to get converted, or I was only, flirting with Christian things. I used to read some Christian books. Father gave me more books, Imitation of Christ and uh, Saint Augustine's books and all that. And and then I applied here in Vellore, and I surprisingly I got in. Um, my father didn't want me to get join here because he wanted me to study in Madras Medical College. But I told him this is the best college in the country and all that, and so he agreed. First few years were very peaceful, but in the first clinical year, there were gospel meetings. They used to have gospel meetings on Saturday evenings, and then Sunday morning, the same gospel meeting preacher would do a Bible study on Sunday, Evangelical Union. And so I went to one of these meetings, and then the preacher kept harping on, you have to take a decision. It's not good enough to know about God. You have to know God. And these things began to bother me and began to play on my mind. And I went through depression because I knew deep down that this was right. And yet I couldn't reconcile the fact that I have to make such a major shift. Uh, Actually, I was quite clinically depressed. So I was not able to even go to work. So I went and saw the psychiatrist. When everybody had gone to a hospital, I went to the psychiatry department and I talked to a psychiatrist. And then of course, he said, you have a conflict, and the conflict is the cause of your depression. You have to resolve the conflict. And he gave me MAO inhibitors. In those days, they didn't have SSRIs. They were not really very powerful, but I took it for a little while, but uh, it didn't really help a great deal. But one day, as I was sitting and reading the Sermon on the Mount again, uh, what struck me was, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. I had so many questions about my future and about the family and about, uh, I was very young. Uh, I mean, because, you finish only one PUC and then you join MBBS. So I was very stressed. And so I had a lot of questions. But again, this seemed to have solved a question. It simply said, please don't worry about any of the other problems. You seek the kingdom of God first, and then other things you don't have to seek, they will be added to you. Like, you order a dosa, and the chutney will be added to you. You don't really order chutney. Sometimes you do, but mostly you just order a dosa, and the other things, sambar and other things, are all added into you. And so when I had this understanding, I felt a great sense of relief. I said, I don't really have to worry about finances, family, and future, and career. And well, what really was the problem was my brother, older brother, he was in the US, and it was all planned that I would join him. And so I think that was one big reason. And the fear of the family was the other big reason. So when I understood this principle that you just had to seek the kingdom of God first, and the other things will fall into place, it sort of made me free. And in a few days, my depression uh, left. And then I took a decision to follow Christ. And so that was how it all started. But Gandhi played an important role because, he uh, talked about the Sermon on the Mount. And when I was in ICMDA, I went to uh, Durban in South Africa to his memorial, and where there is a picture of Gandhi reading the Matthew chapter 6. So it was really very inspiring to be able to actually see that.
You are coming full circle. You went in a sense. You are coming full circle in a sense, isn't it? Going back to Gandhi and to watching his.
Yes.
So this was about, you would have been in third year or fourth year medical college?
Yes, actually third year medical school.
Okay. And how did your parents take it and the rest of your family?
Yeah, Jain community is it's a very wealthy community, and they're very orthodox, very self-controlled. One reason for the wealth is the self-control they have. Many people don't know the relationship between self-control and wealth creation. There'll be very few giant drunkards, smokers, drug addicts, They don't eat non-veg, and all that sort of thing. So they were absolutely repelled and angry. And so they sent a delegation one night, about 1 week after I wrote to my father. They came in a tempo traveler, light vehicle, and bundled up knocked on my door, and carried away all my belongings, uh, including the skeleton which I had. I used to have skeleton with the bone insertions and all that, marked.
Yeah.
So all of that was taken to Coimbatore, and I was locked up for about 4 weeks
In Coimbatore, you
in
also went.
Coimbatore.
Yeah.
My family was under pressure from the Jain community to be very strict, and they were not allowed to release me. And then they suggested that they try in Manipal. So father went to Manipal, and he found out that a seat is available, but it will not be available right now. I'll have to wait for another 6 months. So back to home. And then uh, my mother, I used to talk to my mother. Of course, women are more reasonable. So I was able to tell her that, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm only wanting to do missionary work. Okay, I may not go abroad, but that is not really the issue. The issue is how I find meaning and how I find purpose. And so she understood that, and then she began to resent the community's interference in the family. So she threatened them, saying, see, if you people keep coming and interfering in my family, I may have to go and talk to the police. And she was just shouting. And so everybody became a little more sober. And so they came to the discussion table, and then I said, see, I won't go to church, and I will study Jainism for 6 months after I finish MBBS, but please allow me to go back and study. So, they just had to reluctantly allow me to go back. So I kept those 2 promises, though.
So you returned to Vellore and you studied Jainism as well?
Yeah, I returned to Vellore. I didn't go to church. I didn't attend EU meetings. I was just mainly reading books in the room. And then after I finished MBBS, father invited a Jain guru from Jaisalmer, and he came, and I sort of had to study Jainism for 6 months. Actually, 8 months, but by the time it was about 6 months, he lost interest. He said, see, I think your son is incorrigible, and I don't want to waste my time. So he went back. But it was not really my fault, because whatever he taught, I knew, but I refused to accept, the things that he said. So, and he would keep fighting. So I said, I used to tell him, see, please let's not argue. You teach me Jain principles, and I will show you that I understand them. But he was not really happy with that. He wanted to knock down all Christian things. Why are you eating meat, and why you drink alcohol, and why do Christians do this and that, and so on. So, and how can God? This is the main thing. How can God allow suffering? Your Jesus causes all cancer, and then you all doctors have to go and treat cancer. How can there be a God? If there is a God, he should be able to control cancer. So is he a impotent God, or is he an unloving God? And if he's like that, then there's no use in following him. So you used to keep saying that, all these things again and again. And so,
Yeah, but finally he gave up.
yeah. So at the end of 6 months, I came back and I joined Department of Anatomy here. And then I applied for MS and I did surgery.
So you did your MS soon after MBBS.
Yes, soon after, well,
After you,
6 months in anatomy and 3 months in plastic surgery or something like that. Did and then I did MS surgery.
and I heard you saying that you had told your mother that you were interested in going as a missionary. Was that a separate calling, or how did you feel that?
Well, uh, I assumed that becoming a Christian would mean serving the poor. I think it's not an assumption that most people make when they get converted, but it was an assumption, uh, and it was I I felt led to believe that I should be doing that. So I was telling her that I only wanted to serve people. I don't know whether I told her mission work, but I said I just wanted to do good. You know, it was not. I'm not going to do anything evil or wrong. So
Yeah, yeah. So then, after you finished your MS, uh, you had to make your first decision about where to go and work, isn't it?
yeah,
Were you married by this time? Or?
yes, actually, Shalini was the president of the EU, and she was one of the pillars of the pillars of EU, uh, and she wanted to do mission work in India. So uh, we married 6 months into my MS course, and then we began to do. She did a lot of research because she finished her DCH quickly, and then had time. So she did a lot of research, and I used to hear a lot of stories from people who come back from mission field. So one of the things that often came up was Indian doctors are treated badly by the foreigners. Indian doctors are they just have to do work. All the decisions are taken this was the situation in 1960s and early 70s. All the decisions are taken in some missionary society in England or America or something. I think even in CMC Vellore before 1952, all the decisions about Vellore were taken in the US. The same situation existed. So I I was not interested in being an employee because if I wanted to do something that I felt was strategic or visionary or something. So, uh, and people told me that Indian church has got no money, only foreigners, you have to depend on foreigners. You can't start work on yourself. If you start work by yourself, you will get no money. You will not have money even to buy a catgut. So that was the stories. But then I met Theodore Williams, the Indian Evangelical Mission, and then I talked to him. He said, why don't you become our missionary? And you can go wherever you want, and we'll support you, and we'll get an Indian church to support both of you. And I was very, very excited because I wanted to be supported by an Indian church, and I did not want to join a mission hospital that was managed by foreigners. So Shalini did this research and then found this tribal place in the Rajasthan-Gujarat border. It's a place called Data. It's a princely state, like
Yeah.
as a king.
Mhm.
But all the inhabitants are all tribals, Bhil tribals. And so we thought that would be an interesting place to go. So we went there as missionaries of the Indian Evangelical Mission, first medical missionaries of Indian Medical Missionary Organization. Uh, and we were given the title of a missionary, and that was also new. Missionaries meant white. But here, we had some brown people who were who can now be called missionaries. And also it was cross-cultural because it was a tribal area. language was not Gujarati. And so we stayed there for 5 years. I started a hospital in the harem. The king had a harem with 300 women. He was not able to support the women because they had passed a law against giving princely subsidies to kings at that time, just a couple of years before I went there. So all the women were chased off, and that whole uh, harem was empty. So I negotiated and got that harem for a hospital. And it was a very busy hospital for about 5 years. Because it was under IEM, they sent Bible translators, church planters. Some 16 churches were planted. The Gracia language Bible translation was done. So it was probably one of the most exciting things that can happen to a young person, because um, you suddenly realize that God has control, over every aspect of life. I had no money to renovate the harem into a hospital, and I got surprising donations, not from IEM, but from some donors who you would not expect. Some casual friend from World Vision who got some money from somewhere, and then he sent it to me. So uh, these things all happened just in time. So it was a great confirmation of the fact that we have a God who will actually guide.
And this was a medical work that started from scratch. There was no hospital before that.
No, there was absolutely nothing. So,
So how did your surgeries and other things pick up?
yeah. Well, the first surgery, I started with piles and abscesses and fissures and all that. These people didn't have so many fissures or hemorrhoids. They were tribal people, but they had lots of tuberculosis. So biopsies were very neck biopsies. So these simple things I did initially at the local. Hypertension was not known, neither was diabetes, but they had malignancies. And later on, people from around the town began to come. And then it was an extremely busy hospital, and I was known in that whole district and very popular. I was asked even to be a Congress candidate uh, for elections and stuff like that. But you can imagine how uh, in such a needy place, how easy it is to make something happen so easily.
Yeah. So you were there for 5 years.
Yes,
And
and
then,
there
yeah.
was a problem because it was life was not easy in those days. Remember, we are talking about 1977. Electricity was extremely erratic. Most nights would be without electricity after 12 midnight. And surgery was extremely risky because the lights go off, and then no running water. You have to get water from the well. You have to get gas from the district headquarters. Uh, Meat was not available except on Sundays when the Muslims, cut something. So life was a little difficult, and we had 3 children by that time, and we were not coping. So, and Shalini had, I think, developed some tuberculosis and all that. She was running a big tuberculosis control program funded by Oxfam in that area. So then we decided to come back. So I came back to CMC and hoping to join the surgery department and take rest. But it so happened that there was no place in surgery department, but there was an opportunity in pediatric surgery. So I came one day, I had an interview the next day, and then third day, I joined the MCH course. So life was simpler in that respect.
Yeah. So, and if I remember right, you were after Dr. Sudipta, you were the next batch, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
In Giants. So the next 3 years, 2 years, you were at Vellore.
Yes, and then uh, they asked me to be the director of medical services in IEM. They said, you can stay in Bangalore because, for the family and all that, but you can go and help in all the mission fields and develop their medical program. So I did that. I developed medical programs in 4 places. One place which did extremely well was a place called Ankampalam in the Koya field in Andhra Pradesh, where today they have more than 1 million Koya believers. And then another place was in the Himachal Pradesh. And then another one was in Bastar district, where, you have so many radicals today. But I used to go there often. I used to land in Jagdalpur and do a bicycle ride for about 17 kilometers to a clinic, and which was also very popular. So I developed these missions, medical mission stations within IEM for some time. And then there was a call from one Dr. Howard Searle saying that you did not want to join EHA because you said they were foreign, you wanted Indian leadership. So he said, see, I want you to be the medical director, and then I'm appointing Lal Chuglian as the executive director. So now it will be a complete medical team, and you can do what you want, and there'll be no interference with foreign missions. So I took that as a sign to join EHA because it's ready-made 21 hospitals. There were only like 15 doctors, mostly nurses who were managing the OPD, but lot of property, lot of vehicles, because all the foreigners had left by that time, but they left behind a lot of equipment, good equipment sometimes. And so for the next 8 years, I was the medical director. And then I was made the CEO for the next 8 years. So I spent 16 years in EHA. And I was very reluctant initially to go join EHA because they said one of the most important responsibilities of the medical director is to recruit doctors. And that put me off. I thought, recruiting doctors is not my skill. It's not really a medical skill. But then the Lord talked to me and he said, I'll make you fishers of men. When you talk to people, they will leave their jobs and they will join you. And so I took that as a signal to join. And actually, I was often surprised by the eagerness with so many doctors joined EHA. And so that was actually a very rewarding time. And I had done some management training in strategic planning and all that. So I was able to bring more modern management in EHA, vision missions. In those days, it was absolutely new. Nobody knew what was a vision statement or a mission statement. Nobody knew what strategic planning was. And so when these things were introduced, and some of the things that I did was to enlarge the community health. I did not want to take on more hospitals, but from just a few community health centers, we had 30 community health centers, programs, and also working with government was another important thing I initiated. Christians were wary of working with government. They thought you can't have partnership, what is the verse in Corinthians? What
fellowship will light have with darkness?
That's right. So we were light and the government was dark. So there was no reason. But government is also God's institution. And so we needed to work with government. So that paradigm shift was made. But I think the most of my energy was spent visiting medical schools and talking to medical students all over the country not to Vellore and Ludhiana so much, but to all the other colleges where, because people used to always, all the other mission institutions, they dependent on sponsor students from Vellore and Ludhiana. Nobody really knew that there were so many Christian students in Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh and uh, Jabalpur and all that. So we discovered all these medical students and young doctors, and with the partnership with EMFI, the recruitment process really put EHA on top of a lot of other mission agencies. So that was very satisfying.
Yeah. So 16 years in EHA,
Yeah.
and that would have brought you to 2003, 2004.
2004, yes. And well, I was bored. Uh, I'm different, I guess. When it, the paperwork and the routine, there were so many good leaders also in EHA who were all doing so very well, and they had lots more energy than I had. So there was no term, by the way, in EHA. The temptation was to just go on for another 8 more years or 10 more years and keep extending the retirement age till I'm 70. But I was bored and I was not enjoying my work. I like to have meaning and purpose and vision. So one of the things I learned was that mission hospitals cannot save our country without the support from the government and the private sector. So initially I had that dream that, there would be mission hospitals all over India and that they would just influence the whole country, but it's utterly impractical because mission world has got so little money. So it was not really practical at all. So I wanted to do something for private doctors and government doctors and develop the capacity. And so this very tentative experiment in distance education started. I've written about it. I'm sure some of you already know the story. So,
But tell us anyway.
um, it. I came with 3 suitcases from Delhi. I was given a farewell in Delhi, and Shalini went back to Bangladesh because she had to finish. She was working with some agency there. So I was all alone with 3 suitcases. Landed in Karpati station about middle of the night. And I went to Joyce's house, Joyce Pune, she was my classmate. She was the director of CMC. And so I said, can I stay with you for a few days? I have to meet the principal and try and get a job here. So I met the principal, and then nobody really understood what I was saying. I also didn't really understand fully. But in the end, George just cut it short. He said, see, Vinod, you can do whatever you want. You're a good chap. So you can take one professorial position that is there in CME. CME was managed by Anna, but her position was a lecturer's position. So the professor's position was vacant. So he said, you just take that position. And he said, do you want a new department? I said, I prefer a new department. So it was called the Distance Education Department. So for several days, I was just sitting wondering what I had gotten myself into. I just used to come every day with a blue laptop, which I had taken from EHA. And then little by little made some plan, and then.
But what was your dream? What did you want to see happen?
I wanted to train GPs in the country. By the way, I had visited Indira Gandhi National Open University, and I had some interest in pedagogy. And I knew that I could teach simply by making things simple and by making things interactive. So I wanted to write booklets that were attractive, very simple for them to read, and then for them to come and see some cases, and for Vellore to give them a diploma. So uh, just worked my way through that.
So that's what you sat. You were sat and you were at your laptop. You were trying to prepare booklets. Is it?
Yes, of course, I had to learn a lot of software. Uh, we didn't have InDesign those days. I think the name of the software I forget now. But in that software, you could put we could put pictures. You could put questions, and you can download internet pictures and then get an artist to redraw it so that you don't infringe copyright laws and all that. So it seemed like very stupid work for most people, and to me too, most of the time. This went on for 3 years. So you can imagine, uh, most people, they looked at me and they would say, poor chap, the work in EHA has gotten to him. But luckily, after the second year, the booklets looked very attractive. And when I started and advertised for the program, we had 500 applications. So then I knew I was on the right track. And then when there was enough money coming in, I charged them 17,000 per candidate. It was a lot of money those days. So, 200 candidates paying 17,000. The management was then finally very happy. They began to see some meaning in what I was doing. And I understood that because I was also an administrator in EHA, and I knew you had to balance the books. So I'm not unsympathetic with that.
And
But
you're a businessman also.
yes, my father was.
Yeah.
So then suddenly there was a lot of cooperation from the director's office. Then things became much easier.
Yeah. So
Okay, I mean, I got a grant from from the Netherlands embassy. Now, this is also some uh, sort of flash of inspiration. Uh, there was a Gujarati man I had met who was in the AIDS department in Netherlands embassy who had funded EHA, and he had become a friend. So we used to talk in Gujarati sometimes, and he used to help funding some small projects in EHA. So I called him and I said, "See, I'm doing something extremely novel. Can you ask your ambassador to meet my principal of Christian Medical College?" So he arranged a meeting between the ambassador uh, and JP Mulel. So I dragged JP Mulel. We took a flight, went and met the ambassador. I told the ambassador what we wanted to do. He said, "Okay, you send some proposal." And so I sent a proposal, and he sent $60,000, and that helped initially. So these things helped move the process along. I think if I hadn't got any money, I would have been sacked after the first few years.
yeah. So how long were you at Vellore?
8 years.
So from your initial batch of say 500 students,
Yes.
over the years you saw the
No, one batch was 200 students.
okay.
And then we had, I think Becky will know better, but we had 100 students who were a separate government batch.
So how did that happen?
Yeah, that was also a flash of inspiration. I was stranded in Chennai airport, and the next flight was only in the evening. So the whole day was sort of wasted. I had come there by 7 in the morning. So I took a taxi, went to the health secretary. And the health secretary happened to be a Christian man. You know, what is his name? Any of you remember his name? You know, he was a IS officer. Anyway, I met, pardon? Yeah, Davidar. Yeah. So I met Davidar, and then I told him I'm from CMC. They didn't allow me to meet him. I said, tell him a professor from Vellore has come to see him. It's important. So the peon reluctantly went in, and when he mentioned Vellore, Davidar came out, and then he took me inside. And I told him, he said, you're just in the nick of time because some foreign investors are coming asking me what I can do for, what they can do for Tamil Nadu health system. So I will tell them that you want to train them in family medicine. I said, yes, please do. And I'll give you a proposal. So I gave him a proposal, and that's how and then he went and talked to the national NRHM, that means National Rural Health Mission uh, head, the very big head in Delhi. And so he showed him the booklets and all that I had given him. So he invited me to talk to all the health secretaries in India in a big meeting in Pondicherry, five-star hotel. And then I had 1 hour time to talk to them about this proposal. 8 of the North Indian states agreed to send government doctors. So there was this opportunity now to train government doctors also in CMC. And one of the things I always wanted to make sure that there was value addition to what we were doing. We would have a thought for the day. And we didn't really have to do too much about the value because the culture in CMC itself was so unique that all the people who came here and stayed here for 10 days, they would go back transformed. I really can't understand that fully. Some examples, like they would say, you stop and talk to us. When we want a chair, you give us your chair and you take another chair. You know, there are things like this which we take for granted in CMC. For them, it was actually absolutely novel. So the value transmission to the government doctors and to all the doctors from everywhere else was a very major phenomenon. And you can see that from, I think, all the convocations that Jakin and Becky have been holding, all the feedback that they have been giving, that this is not simply a course, it's transformed our lives and all that sort of thing. So it was very fulfilling to have been able to do that.
So you keep using this phrase, flash of inspiration. How did that happen? That you are sitting in the airport, your plane is delayed, and then you decide to go and meet the secretary, health secretary?
It is a flash of inspiration because, you know, I could have just gone to a restaurant and
so you had no previous plan. You had no plan to do this.
No, I did not have a previous plan. No.
So you just suddenly thought you'll go and meet the health secretary.
Well, I wanted to make good use of my time. I was locked up in the airport. So I thought, you know, I have the whole day. So I might as well just go and do something useful. It was official leave. I was going to some place now, I don't remember, maybe to one of the embassy, giving some reports to them and all that. So yeah, that was, I guess when you have some meaning, you'll always get flashes of inspiration. If your work is a job, you won't be inspired. But if your work is a vocation, you will always get inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us maybe about your time in Vellore, or shall we go to the next mountain?
I was treated very well. I came here completely disempowered. At the end of my tenure in EHA, I had access to like crores of rupees of budget every year. And then suddenly to come here and to have a reduction in salary, and then not to be known by anybody. It was complete powerlessness. And I think that helped me spiritually a great deal, because I think in that powerlessness, you learn to trust. You learn to trust God more. And when you trust God more, more things happen. So I think that's the important thing about not being afraid of losing position or power. I do think that not many people would have taken that risk of uh, taking this step of coming to a big academic institution where you've been a very rural kind of a surgeon and an administrator, then coming to all the professors here and so on. But they treated me well and I learned quickly. So I managed well, and I'm grateful for the culture that we have here in CMC, where values are respected. It's not simply about knowledge or about getting ahead. So
So then after your time in distance education, I understand you made another major career shift to...
yes, there was an application for Director of International Christian Medical and Dental Association. At the same time, a lot of leadership had developed in distance education. There were at least 4 others, and we're all very good. And I was again bored because it was going well. And people said, you know, only ICMDA is a 50-year-old organization. They have had only white people as CEOs, Norwegians, Dutch, English. And they said, you know, what chance do you have of becoming a CEO of ICMDA? So I said, no, why not? You know, I know as much about mission as anybody else. So I applied. And then I put in my resume and everything, and I called for an interview. There were 11 applicants. So I was just having fun. But I was really surprised when I was chosen as the CEO of ICMDA. They liked the vision. I told them about what vision I would have, which is to make it more inclusive. You know, Africans were not included in ICMDA. It was mainly a white people's club. We hardly had heard of ICMDA in India. And so I told them about how I wanted it to be more inclusive, and how I would like it to be a training organization, not simply having conferences. And there were other things that I mentioned and about my experience, so they chose me. And some important things that happened in ICMDA was that I created 8 ICMDAs, English ICMDA, and then there was the French and the Portuguese, and then the Spanish, and then the Russian, and then the Arabic. And so I visited all of these places and challenged each of them to take on leadership role and not to simply depend on the white Western countries for leadership. And so they formed their own committees. And actually, ICMDA was very appreciative of this. And so, you know, I think this is one of the best things that happened to ICMDA, because now it's a truly worldwide body with the major language groups covered except Chinese. I went to China many times, but I was not able to make headway. And then the other thing that helped ICMDA is what now is the partnership with distance education and ICMDA. They have the International Family Medicine. It is called the International Diploma, is it, Becky? International Family Medicine Diploma?
Yes, sir. The International Postgraduate Diploma in Family Medicine.
Yeah. Now, that diploma has made ICMDA financially a little bit more sustainable. And when I was a CEO, well, they expected me to play by the rules, which was, the donor countries are US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. The donor countries will have most of the say, and whatever they say has to be done. But suddenly, I found money for South Sudan, millions of dollars, and some of it came to ICMDA, and then money through Edinburgh, family medicine diploma. And so I was sort of self-sufficient without bothering the countries. And so people were open to whatever I was suggesting in the board. So God empowered me in that way and helped my vision. Otherwise, I think it would have been difficult to bring in all the other language groups. As a policy, ICMDA policy, when it was established, the policy itself says the language of ICMDA is English. And so to go against that policy itself would have been extremely difficult had it not been for the fact that suddenly they realized that the organization can survive without, too much support from other countries. So, and then of course, there were very genuine people in the organization. My chairman especially was very fond of me. He supported me no end. And there were others in the board, Peter Saunders and others, who supported me greatly. There was a fight in the board, ICMDA board. A group of people said, this man doesn't know what he's doing. He's starting some negotiations with Sudanese government of Sudan and starting a medical school there. And he should be just organizing the fellowship and having conferences. And so there was a heated discussion and they wanted me to explain. So I went through the explanation. More than half of the board supported me. So it was a very difficult struggle. But then I finally realized that if you have a vision and if you know that God is with you, you can fight any board and you can fight anybody as long as you're able to hold on to it and pursue it and not give up. Perseverance is also very important.
Yeah. So because of shortness of time, I'm now going to come to the present. So after ICMDA, you went on to the next challenge, isn't it? The next. So what are you involved in right now?
I feel that miniaturization is happening in the technological world. You get, and because of technology, home-based care has become extremely accessible. You can have a Bluetooth stethoscope. You can have a handheld ultrasound. You can have a thermography machine that can detect pneumonia, just small. You can have a Doppler, handheld Doppler. You can have all sorts of equipment nowadays. I'm sure that the corporate companies are making this equipment extremely big because they want to sell it for $5 million and $3 million and so on. But I think an X-ray machine can be miniaturized to take it to a house. And I think that even a CT scanner can be miniaturized. And I feel that if we invent home-based care and have it seamlessly connected to hospitals, then every hospital can have a home-based care department. So the hospital stay is very short. The doctors do what they are highly trained for, and the rest of the work is shifted to the house by alternative health professionals. So this is a big dream. It's a lot of technology, and I don't have so much energy, but I want to plant that idea so that somebody else maybe can take it forward. So I started an organization called PISIS, and I'm trying to put some pieces of the puzzle in place, and maybe after I'm gone, maybe somebody else will put some more pieces of the puzzle and then make this a reality, because I think this is the only way healthcare cost is going to be, healthcare costs can be affordable for at least our country. You can see the more innovation in medicine, the more corporations become richer, the more doctors become puppets, and the drug companies become the controllers of the, and because they don't have direct patient contact, they don't care at all. The corporations don't care because they don't have direct patient contact. This is the doctors who suffer, because you see human beings suffering, dying. We see poverty in our country and we feel compassion, but we can't do anything because we have become puppets. So we have to do something to change technology and miniaturize it and reduce healthcare costs. So, I mean, this is it's not really, yeah, and of course, home. Home simply means that you become more vulnerable. You know, in a hospital, you go to a hospital, you tremble. This big guy, a heart surgeon, or a brain surgeon, he will do something, and you're afraid. But even if you're a heart surgeon, if you go to somebody's house, you have to follow the rules of the house. You know, you become vulnerable, so you have to behave. You can't be rude. So it's a easier context for the gospel. You know, when you're vulnerable, the gospel spreads faster. If you are very powerful, the gospel will not spread. So I believe that in very powerful hospitals, which have a big power distance, you know, extremely wealthy doctors and very poor patients, you cannot actually communicate values, because they will think that we are in a different world, this guy in a different world. We can't see the same things. But when you become vulnerable, you know, value transfer becomes more possible.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle. We are almost coming to the end of our time. But I was wanting to talk a little bit about this word vision that you kept using. And I suppose I mean, right from the time you were a medical student and uh, you read this verse that seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added to you. And it seems to me like you've had a number of, almost each of them has been a career in itself. The time in Gujarat and Rajasthan, and then the time with EHA, and then the time with distance education, and the time with ICMDA, and now your current work with this home-based care. So, if you can just, take us through some of the ideas that have made you take these decisions. The why? Why did you say go to? I'm sure you've talked about it in a little way in this interview, but what was the undergirding, say, vision or mission of your life that has made you do all these interesting things all these years?
Yeah. I often talk about it to all the distance education trainees. I talk about job, career, and a vocation. Now, job is where you do something just for your upkeep. It's necessary, important, but that cannot be in itself satisfying or inspiring. It'll never give meaning to life. career is it's still about yourself. It's about professionalism, knowing more, learning to do more, being more, getting more skills. So, but it's still about yourself. It's not crossed the me boundary, because it is still about my wanting a career in anesthesia. But it doesn't define why. So the why question is still not answered. The why question is only answered in a vocation. Why do you want to do it? The why question can have many small answers, but for me, the only big answer is the kingdom of God. So all of us need to have this why, vision, which is the kingdom of God. But the way we do things in the kingdom, we have different gifts, different talents, different opportunities and abilities, and also likes and dislikes. So we do different things, but all of us have to have this sense of vocation, which is actually the big picture. And this big picture is then not about you. And when it is not about you, life becomes very inspiring. I often tell people I've never been bored. I mean, okay, there have been days like now when I'm sort of having fever and COVID, possibly, I don't know, that you feel a little bored. I don't simply enjoy watching movies, um, but most of the time, I've never been bored, and I find it sad when people say, "Oh, it's so boring," and I think that boredom is a symptom that people don't have a vision or a vocation.
So when you say not thinking about yourself, but seeing the bigger picture, and uh, so could you give us some examples, or say
Yes.
people, yeah.
Well, I mean,
How do you develop that big picture thinking, or
okay, like for an IEM, I wanted the Indian church to support Indian missionaries. I wanted Indian missionaries to be responsible for the task of Indian missions. Now, that was like a big picture.
yeah, yeah.
And that guided me into the decisions I took. Uh, I was wooed by so many hospitals. You can imagine there were so few surgeons those days. They were offering large salaries. But I had made up my mind that I want to be dependent on a Indian church so they learn to give. And then I wanted to be a missionary myself. I don't want to uh, be responsible to someone in USA who takes policy decisions about mission. I want to strategize. I want to teach others in India to strategize. And I want Indian leaders to take on their full mission responsibility. So that for me was the vision that time.
Yeah. So at each stage, EHA and distance education, there was a vision which was not just about finding something that kept you occupied or kept you
Oh
interested.
no, oh no.
It
Actually,
was
the
not
salary
just
when
it was not just looking for a new challenge, or even
no,
like you said on one occasion you even took a salary cut, isn't it?
yes,
Your salary. But
yes, it was about uh, also a sense of adventure. I guess vocation has with within it a sense of adventure built in, and this is why uh, people sometimes find reason to find unusual ways of adventures, like climbing the Everest and all that. I mean, it's a good. Some people can do it, but most people don't find adventure in life because they don't have a vocation. But if you have a vocation, it becomes an adventure.
and what you are suggesting is that you can develop a vocation by asking big picture questions.
Correct.
Uh, uh, questions from the point of view of God's kingdom.
Yes.
How can my talents and my abilities and be used to solve a difficult problem that would further or that would advance, say, God's kingdom in our country or something like that?
Yes, like now I'm thinking of how to reduce healthcare costs through technological innovation and through appropriate partnership with hospitals. Uh, yeah, so sometimes you're not always successful. You do something, but you leave behind some thoughts that someone else will pick it up and then run with it. So
Yeah. Okay, so before we end, let me just ask, so how has your family taken this? Your parents and your brothers and sisters watching your career over the years, and has it impacted them? Or...
someone like me, it's sometimes difficult to live with for a family because it can very easily become an obsession. So I have to be careful about. I was warned, and in spite of the warning, I think I didn't really do so all that well. So some neglect of the family was one of the problems. Uh, but the understanding that family is also part of God's kingdom is an important understanding. It's an understanding that came to me maybe only about 20, 25 years ago. But yeah, but my brothers and sisters, they have been, they have great respect for me. They don't agree with anything I do or say, but they have great respect for me and my father also. Uh, there was some issue about inheritance. My father died about 5 years ago. So my father told the two of them, I have a brother and a sister. He said, I trust Vinod will always take the right decision. So if there's any problem, just I believe that he will resolve it. And so it was for me, that was uh, the greatest compliment my father paid.
Yeah. And your mother too, I understand that she was able to come and spend some time with you in her last few weeks. And...
Yeah, both of them died here in Vellore. Both of them, I looked after them. I looked after them quite a lot. I looked after their about, both put together about 16 operations. I was with them all the time. And finally, before they died, both of them accepted the Lord.
Yeah, praise God.
I've been doing all the speaking, but if there's already time, but if you want one or two questions to be answered, I don't mind.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you very much for sharing with us and your journey all these years. I was once with Johnny Umen, and Johnny Umen was saying that he was also very hesitant to allow people to just ask questions like this, do an interview, but the way you have allowed, he said that it's like he feels like it's like a cadaver. and you just let yourself lie on the examination table and people are poking and cutting and asking questions. And thank you for being willing to allow us to do this over the last hour. And I'm sure we have all learned a lot by listening to your story, and we're all leaving a lot more inspired. And I'm just going to open this up now for a time if anybody wants to ask questions. Maybe you could type it in the chat box, or you could just put on your mic and ask Dr. Vinod directly.
Yeah. Actually, there's a very simple answer to that. I've said this once before in a CMI meeting. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. I'm just changing that and saying, seek ye first good people and good leaders, and all these other things will be added unto you. So what you need is good leadership. Seminaries need to produce good ethical leaders. It's sad to be able to say such a thing because seminaries are supposed to produce that. But I think the simplest answer is to create good leadership in the church. So, and that is the most difficult part. Changing systems, yeah, you can change systems, you can change management structures, you can use a lot of technology, but there'll always be ways of going around it and still cheating and still being corrupt. But I call this external compulsions and internal compulsions. Unless a man has internal compulsions to do good and right, an organization or a church will never do well. If there are only external audits, external management sort of supervisory structures, an organization will not do well. They have to be internal compulsions. So this is about developing good leadership. That means schools, that means parents, that means, I guess, the Bible in the house, Bible in the schools, biblical values. So for example, the oximeter, when I was in EHA, the oximeter was like a big box and it costed thousands of rupees. It was unaffordable for our hospital, but nobody wanted to miniaturize it because, if you make it, just now the oximeter is so small. The reason it has become small is because there's so much competition and because of the COVID. But it could have been made very small if people were interested in making it cheap. But companies which produce the technology are not really interested in driving down costs. They are interested in making money. And so Christian doctors have to find a way of compelling the technology folk to miniaturize, like ultrasound. The ultrasound now has become so small. You can put it on your iPhone. The camera was so big, I know 30, 40 years ago, they would say Yashica, that is like thousands of rupees. And but now you have a camera, even for 4,000 rupee phone, you get very good camera pictures. So technology can be miniaturized, but people don't want to do it purposely because they want to make more money. But we doctors suffer because of that, because we have to deal with patients who have no money. So I'm saying that there must be some way of miniaturizing technology, or partnering with drug company, partnering with technology companies that will help us by miniaturizing big equipment. The echo can be miniaturized. I'm sure that lots of things can be miniaturized. and make it cheaper and available to take it to homes.
I remember you once sharing with me about why you were interested in taking some of this technology to the homes, and why you were interested in training. I think your organization is currently also training a lot of people uh, to to do a lot of things at the house itself, not doctors, but nurses and other paramedical staff. Can you talk a
Yeah,
little bit about the
yeah,
why of
yeah.
it?
Actually, see, the average doctor uh, learns much more than what he really needs to do. I mean, he learns a lot, but in actual practice, he performs only a very small amount of things that he has learned. That is inefficient. He should focus on things that are harder and leave all the simpler parts to alternative human health resource, because then costs will come down. If the doctors have to give injections, if the doctors have to start IVs, if they have to do all that, the cost will go up. If everything is handed over to alternative human health, like ultrasound technicians and echo technicians, doctors don't need to do everything. So the more you pass it on, the better it is for the system, for the costs, and better it is for other health professionals. They feel more useful. They don't just feel like a cog in the wheel. They feel also, they take pride in the work. Like I'm working in Chetpet, I get the sisters to uh, close the wound after hysterectomy. The sister was very surprised. I said, you can do it. Even a cobbler can do it. And then she did it a few times. And then she takes a lot of pride in doing it really well. If I had to do it, I wouldn't do it so well because I'm in a hurry. So that's just an example of how uh, delegating responsibility to others will help reduce healthcare costs.
And you were also keen on training missionaries to be home caregivers, isn't it?
There are lots of very simple things that any human being with two hands can do. Uh, so if you train missionaries, the thing about missionary work is it's in the current context, it's not really possible to talk religion. So there needs to be a context. You can't just grab a guy on the street and say, hey, here's a tract. I mean, you can, but it may not have much impact because there's no context. There has to be a context for what you want to do. It has to be part of a normal human relationship. Witnessing cannot happen outside of a normal human relationship. I cannot stop a car suddenly and then jump out and give a tract to somebody. I mean, I can, but it won't have much effect. So when a missionary goes to a house to help a person, say, do a bandage, change the diabetic dressing, which is so very common, extremely common. I see it, see 10 diabetic feet every day when I go to the hospital. Now, I don't really need to do that. I've taught people how to do debridement also. All that is yellow, you cut. All that is black, you cut, And so they learn debridement and they have a pride in their work. So missionaries do all this. And then they are missionaries at heart. So if they talk about religion, it makes sense because they have a context to do that.
Thank you. There are some questions in the chat box. Let me just quickly go through them. Do you work with any good biotechnology companies in India?
Uh, no, my only source of inspiration is Arun, Becky's husband.
Yeah.
But I get some forwards from many people because a lot of people know I'm interested in this. So they send me forwards of technology. I'm struggling to finance it. I feel if I can do a little bit and get a little off the ground, maybe like the distance education department, then it'll have a life of its own. So I'm not, you know, possessed by it.
Yeah.
I'm at a stage in life when it may not matter if I don't succeed, but I'm just doing because it's interesting, and it is something that I think is part of the kingdom of God. So
Yeah.
um, actually, I would have liked to say I get up every morning. There have been periods when I used to get up at 4 and pray till 6, like about 3-4 years. Uh, Most of the time, I do the praying when I walk. I've been walking for maybe 40 years. So when I walk, I get most of my inspiration. And I get to speak a lot. And because I get to speak a lot, I have to read the Bible a lot. And so I read and reflect a lot. I'm a very reflective person, so ask a lot of questions myself. So I think that was what has kept me. Uh, I suddenly discovered that I'm praying most of the time. I mean, I don't have specific times of prayer, but every little thing, I use it as an opportunity to pray a small prayer. So I think I pray more than I think I'm praying. Uh, I've not been all that disciplined spiritually, I think. I could have done with a little bit more.
Of course, there's a question, is there an autobiography already there or in the works?
Oh, no autobiography. I haven't recorded. I wish I had. I wish I had kept all the correspondence, especially the distance education part, the first 2 years, all the hate mail and all the other things that came, uh, and all the all the challenges in Gujarat, all the persecution and all the stone throwing, and I wish I had recorded every detail, but it's now too late to be able to do that. It was not a culture at that time to take, we had no cell phone, no opportunity to take pictures. And yeah, I wish I had done more of that. I think if I was more of Western culture, I may have done it. Documentation is a very Western thing.
How did you keep going despite stone throwing?
Oh,
There's a question in the chat.
well, oh, I see. Well, there were a few episodes of those. But then interestingly, the chap who organized the stone throwing, he came to me the next day. He said, I want to talk to you, sir, in the hospital in Gujarat. And he said, sir, I had to do it. People came from Delhi and they told me to arrange a stone throwing thing. So I did it, but please forgive me. So it was amusing. It was all from outside. There were no local people who would do that. So, and I think that has been the case in the rest of the country. All the stone throwing is being imposed by people from the top who compel people at the bottom to do it. But the local community will not do it.
Yeah. So thank you, sir, for this wonderful time that we've been able to have with you. I was thinking that, with your fever and just recovering from typhoid or COVID, and how did you have the stamina to, talk and explain things to us so clearly? And thank you very much for making the time for us and for uh, your message and for all that we have learned from your life. I believe Dr. Rebecca has offered to, or Becky has offered to help you write it all up from distance education, so that we can
Okay.
try and document some of these things. I think the story of your life, there's a lot that we can learn from people of our generation and the medical students and others, younger than us. I myself have learned a lot from your life over the years, and so I'm very grateful for this time that we could have to listen to you. So I will, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have an appreciative audience. It makes it easier to talk.